people are looking for answers. This show asks the right questions.
Follow Chris on Twitter.
Welcome to the Mac Files.
44.
I lost you.
Oh, you're fine. And a good evening, everyone. Chris McDonald with the Mac Files broadcast. We have a very special guest with us tonight, a new guest. We always enjoy bringing folks on that are brand new, and Bruce Foucart is one of those folks. He is the owner, actually, of Foucart's Associates. It's a security organization that deals with helping businesses protect themselves. He also deals with subjects such as money laundering and other things. He's on the college circuit sometimes, but his real job, his real work was back in the day when he was the assistant director at ICE and also a special agent with the New England field office from 2006 to 2014. Bruce, it is a deep, deep pleasure to have you tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. Our good friend Eric Karen brought us together, and Eric was a patriot on here. I know you'll be the same, but I just want to say welcome to the Mac Files. Our audience salutes you tonight, and I've got a lot of patriots in this audience, and I know that they're going to be really, really intrigued as to what you have to say. It's good to have you tonight, friend.
Thank you, Chris. And we welcome both Patriots, United States Patriots, as well as New England Patriots, as you know, Super Bowl champions.
Well, Bruce, I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, and if you only knew how much that just hurt my heart, that you just dug a dagger deep into the heart of the South. You just don't know, bro. We're still hurting over that one.
There's a lot of haters out there, a lot of haters, Chris.
We don't hate you. We just, you have to tip your hat to Brady and the bunch. But, it does hurt. Us Falcons fans, we ain't had a Super Bowl ever. So, we're that close and have it snatched from us. It still stings a little bit. But it's all in good fun. And the Patriots deserve a lot of credit. They've got a good program. Bruce, it's so good to talk to you. And I want to just start the program off and let you sort of tell everybody about your past and some of the things you've dealt with. And we're going to talk a lot about the border tonight, but you are also involved in some other things that relate to national security that our country remembers, and we're going to deal with that too. But if you would, I just want you to just start off the program by telling us a little bit about what you were involved in and your work in the ICE agency, and maybe what's going on the border, your thoughts right now, because there's a lot of troubling things. I just read a report today off Breitbart as the day of this interview we're talking. They said that the amount of meth that has come across the southern border just in the last probably 5 to 6 months is at a record level. And that's something the mainstream media is just absolutely derelict in their duty of reporting. They never report things like that. It's always all this political stuff. But look, meth will kill you, and meth is killing people in America. But the source of this is like a river that's flowing from the south, and we've got to get this stopped. And I want to get your take on this, but go ahead and talk to us a little bit about your work and give us some insight on that.
Sure. Well, thank you, Chris. I retired in 2016 with 31 years in the federal government as a criminal investigator. Started with U.S. Marshal Service, then went to the U.S. Customs Service, and then after 9/11, we merged into DHS, and I became an ICE agent, then the special agent in charge of the ICE office in Boston, and then later as an assistant director at headquarters. Yes, I'm very, very familiar with smuggling, familiar with illicit trade coming into the United States with money laundering, et cetera. I've been to the Southwest border before. It's crazy. It's what you can imagine. We are understaffed there. It's everything. It's the chaos you can imagine. And you're right. The normal media, the mainstream media, fails to do it justice. Every time you think you have an interview, perhaps with a Border Patrol agent down there, they're only going to, put out their agenda and what they believe, they want you to hear. But yes, the fact is if drugs are not being muled over by people, they certainly are coming through trucks. And the fact is if we don't have enough resources, examining those trucks, doing X-rays and stuff like that, it's a sieve down there. And so, the wall is more of a euphemism for increased border security on the Southwest border. And trust me, there's other borders where people can come in. They're a little bit more desolate in the Northeast. Being from New England, we saw that up in Canada, but we also saw some human smuggling. People in Canadian cells bringing people down into Vermont, et cetera. So it's not only a Southwest issue thing. It's an issue throughout the country. And then, of course, you have what we call overstays. People who come into the United States with a benefit or with a legal visa that fail to leave. And that is very, very dangerous to the United States because we're not doing a good enough job policing that up, unfortunately. And they estimate, 3 to 4 million at least visa overstays in the United States, what we call overstays. And so, one of the points I always like to make is the fact that when people think about illegal immigration, they always think, well, Southwest border, we're talking Hispanics, Central Americans coming in that just want to better their lives. What they don't think about is, people coming in from the Middle East, people coming in from the Far East that have definite plans to hurt the United States. So it isn't just about people coming into the United States and wanting to work. It's about national security issues. And then there's the whole other side of the justice that goes along with legal immigration, not illegal immigration. Ask the woman who's waiting in the Philippines and she's waited for 5, 6, 7 years for her visa to be approved. How can she take the fact that someone jumps a fence and they potentially could be given amnesty? That doesn't sit well with me. People that are in law enforcement believe in justice. So doing it the right way is what we believe in. And if you've ever been to a naturalization ceremony, it really gets you right in the heart. These people that have done it correctly, they've learned English, they've assimilated, they know this country, and they are U.S. citizens now. And I am so happy for them. But that's the way it should be done legally.
Absolutely, Bruce. And you brought up a lot of great points there. And I think that what you mentioned about the lady in the Philippines, I think that's what's very troubling to a lot of people here in America. Look, we've always been a nation of immigrants. We've always welcomed the immigrants. We've never, ever, ever put a hand up and say, don't come in here. All we've simply asked people to do is if you come here, come and assimilate with us. Come here and learn our language. Come here and learn our laws. Come here and obey our laws. Bruce, this is an invasion, man. This is a force of people that could give a crap less about any of that. They are coming here with their own national flags demanding us open the border. And y'all are going to adjust to us. And I got news for them, man. That's not our job to adjust to them. They're coming in here. They shouldn't be here to begin with. But dadgummit, if they're going to come in here, assimilate with us, obey our laws. That's not happening. And a lot of the left, Bruce, is giving them a free pass on that. That's what the left wants.
And it starts with the word immigrant.
Yes.
I mean, you can be an illegal immigrant in the United States, and the left are going to call you an immigrant, which is wrong. Right. And I myself like to call them an alien because if you read the law, they are called aliens or illegal aliens based on the 1986 INA Act. So to give someone credit of being an immigrant and not an illegal immigrant really rubs me the wrong way. And I'm sure it rubs a lot of people the wrong way because the people, again, that have done it the right way, gone through the system legally and have naturalized are the people that deserve that title of being an immigrant in the United States or being a United States citizen now. Yeah.
Bruce, I know a lot of things have changed since President Trump, but you served during a time under another administration that was hell-bent on letting these people come in. And I know all the crap that they were putting out there claiming that they were trying to stop all this stuff. And I don't no more believe that than I believe in the Easter Bunny. I'm telling you, the bureaucracy has to have been unbelievably offensive to you because I've talked to you outside the show and I know what kind of spirit you got. And I think that's what frustrates us out here in the public too. It's not the fact that the border is under siege. We get that. I understand what the president's up against. But what frustrates me and frustrates the hell out of people out here are Congress and the senators that are standing in front of what needs to be done to fix the problem. Look, if you address a problem, that's the biggest thing is admitting you've got it, okay? But when you know you have it and you do everything to impede the solution because of politics, that burns somebody's ass, including mine, that they're doing that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you talk about porous borders, but those people have got to go somewhere. They're going into, mainstream America. They're going into the big cities or around the United States. And then you have the problem with sanctuary cities.
Yes.
You have the issue where politicians are giving people a pass. They're not cooperating with the federal government, including ICE. They're not allowing local law enforcement to honor detainers. ICE put out a great public affairs article on March 5th, which showed 20 separate people who had been arrested for local violations that had detainers to be removed from the United States in the New York area, that local law enforcement failed to call the federal government. Not that local law enforcement doesn't want to, but the local politicians are not allowing them to. I mean, just last week, we had a 59-year-old woman that was killed in San Jose by someone who ICE had to detain her or filed to detain her 9 times for. A schizophrenic that we knew was a danger to the community. And yet he goes and breaks in and kills a 59-year-old woman. I tell you what, I hope these local politicians have blood on their hands and they can't sleep at night. That really, and it really, think about the 9/11 Commission. How far away have we moved from 9/11? So far away. When you think about how this country came together after 9/11, the 9/11 Commission itself specifically cites that local and state law enforcement have to do a better job with the federal government, which the onus is on both to cooperate. Sanctuary cities is an obstruction to that point. It's an obstruction to that 9/11 Commission's point. So it's insane the way they put people's lives, such as you and me, by allowing these people to go back into the community when they should be removed from the United States. They are criminal aliens that do not deserve, well, first of all, no one deserves to be here unless they're here legally.
Exactly.
However, these criminal aliens need to go to the front of the pack to be removed because it's public safety.
Yeah. Bruce, you're right. And you mentioned something. I'm going to ask you a question on a personal note. How do you think these politicians do sleep at night? It seems they don't care, Bruce. It's just like they don't care.
It is exactly like they're looking for the vote. When they can't elect the officials that they want, they look for different ways, such as lowering the voting age or allowing illegals to vote, to broaden that base because they can't elect them the proper way. It's outrageous that you don't have to show an ID when you go to vote. It's outrageous.
And I think that's what they want to do over the Electoral College, because if you think about the states that this affects the most, California being probably number one because of the population of that state. And look, I've always felt like, and I may be wrong, but I really truly believe if you would have taken away the illegal alien vote in California, Donald Trump won the popular vote in the 2016 election. I believe that. Mm-hmm. But it's beyond Donald Trump. It's beyond President Trump. It goes for future. It goes to the future elections of this country. If we don't get this crap under control, Texas is going blue. All these states on the border are going blue because that's what they want, Bruce. It's like the Democrats want the votes, the Republicans want the labor, and we're getting screwed up the butt by both parties on this because nobody will take a stand and do what's necessary to get the criminal alien out. And I'm with you 1,000% on what you said. It's not just the criminal alien. The alien himself is criminal if he's here illegally to me. And that, you know what that does? That eradicates all arguments that they make about civility, about compassion, about what we owe them, what we're supposed to do for them, what we don't supposed to do to them. Let me tell you something. You don't talk to me until you become a citizen of the United States of America. Then we'll talk about compassion. Then we'll talk about helping you. Then we'll talk about what we owe you and what we don't owe you. Because as long as you're here illegally, America don't owe you a damn thing. That's just Chris's take on it.
No, it's my take too, Chris. And so what people don't realize and what mainstream media doesn't want you to know is there's this seamy underbelly of illegal immigration. When you come into the United States illegally, you have to live in the shadows, which means you have to break the law. You either steal someone's identity or you're going to buy fictitious documents. And who are selling these fictitious documents? They're criminals. And they're taking these criminals that are selling you fake IDs, fake social security cards, fake licenses, are using that money to pump it into drugs. They're pumping it into gangs to sell weapons, etc. So if you're living in the shadows, there's no way you can live legally without continually breaking the laws of the United States. Whether you get an illegal license and drive, and then all bets are off if you get into an accident with an illegal alien. But you continue to live in the shadows. You have to break the law. People say, well, we're going to show you this. I forget which think tank came out last summer. We're going to show you where illegal aliens don't break the law as much as a regular citizen. That's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. When you're here illegally, everything that you do to live in those shadows is breaking the law. And people don't recognize, well, it's an administrative violation. Well, he just wants to make a better life for his family. Do it the right way. You do it the right way. Raise your hand and swear the oath to the United States.
And Bruce, you said something a while ago, and I would encourage our audience, and you encourage me. I would like to see. I think it would move us all to go to a naturalization ceremony and watch how it really feels to become a real citizen of our nation. I think we would appreciate our own citizenship. I think it would give us that encouragement. And again, it goes back to our lawmakers and our leaders in Washington. It all starts at the top. And I feel like President Trump is doing as much as he possibly can to fight this, but he's only one man, and he's got to have some help from somewhere. He's going to have Congress to step up. Look, he's being sued right now by 16 states over this national emergency declaration. I don't see any reason legally, constitutionally, that the Supreme Court would side with the states because it's his prerogative. Look, I saw something today. It was a comical meme, but it really spoke to everything. I mean, Barack Obama passed emergency declarations to help Burundi, of all places, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, the Philippines. I mean, my God, there was like 10 countries that he passed national
Sudan.
Yes, Sudan, yeah. And all other national emergency declarations. He never passed an emergency declaration to help America. Donald Trump's only passed one, and that was to help America. And I think you would agree with this. We have a national emergency at the border. There's no other way to describe what's going on down there, is it?
And again, the border, the Middle America becomes an extension of the border,
yes,
no matter where that is. And we do need interior enforcement. And interior enforcement starts and ends with local law enforcement. They are the boots on the ground in the street. They know who the violators are. They know where people live. They know those communities, and they need to coordinate with the federal government. They need to coordinate with federal law enforcement, including the FBI, whether it be DEA, whether it be ICE, whether it be HSI. They need to do a better job, and we need to do a better job coordinating and collaborating for sure. And let me just get back to that one point about President Trump. You've had middle stream liberals just deviate so far to the left because they hate the man. They hate the man. I mean, listen, he's different. He's not your normal president, but they don't respect the president. They don't respect that position.
Oh, exactly.
And they will say anything. They will do anything to vilify the man. And you've seen, again, middle of the road Democrats swing so far to the left. And all it's doing is it's messing the country up. It really is.
Exactly. It hurts the country, Bruce. That's the key point right there. It doesn't. I think it hurts President Trump. It's like water off his back. President Trump is a tough cookie. I've watched this man for 2 years. Look, I've been a supporter of his from the beginning. I don't even blink an eye saying that. I'd vote for him a million times. The job he's done in the 2 years alone has brought us back from so much and has done so much for the country. I mean, hell, we ain't even got through his first term yet, and the man has given his life to this. But what bothers me is they don't care about the country. And I got a question for you about this in a way, and we'll move on from something else after this. A couple of questions. The border wall. Big question about the border wall, and I'm just curious what your opinion about that is. Like, I know I'm not naive to believe that the border wall is going to solve every single problem down at the border, but I do believe it will solve a lot of the problem. Mm-hmm. Not all of it, but some. I'm just curious how you feel about that. And my second question to you is this. Why is it that ICE has had so many problems getting people out of the country, and then they're coming back, these multiple offenders? Because every time I turn around and hear about a crime, I hear about somebody being killed, it's bad enough the death occurs, but when you find out this jackass has been in the country like 10 times, he's been thrown out 10 times, and he's come back 10 times, it does make you shake your head and wonder who is tying the hands of ICE, who's tying the hands of our people down along the border that's kicking these people out only to watch them come back in. Can you speak to those problems?
Yeah, let me answer the second question. We have a lack of integrity with our immigration system, and and you can say that the Department of Justice will not charge these repeat offenders. So if you are deported from the United States and re-enter the United States, it is, I believe it's a 5-year minimum charge, criminal charge. So you should do your 5 years in jail and then get removed. You may think about coming in that second time after you've done 5 years in jail. But the Department of Justice in the last administration and even in this administration very rarely will charge someone it's called a re-entry. And so maybe we don't have enough jail space. I don't know all the reasons, but that's one of the things they should absolutely be doing, because it puts integrity back into our immigration system. I can tell you so many different times where we investigate a criminal case, say, for example, human smuggling, say, for example, drug trafficking, whatever. And during the course of that violator who is illegally in the United States, during his course of due process, had an opportunity to put himself into removal proceedings, and the judge will what the judge would do is say, okay, I am not going to hold you any longer. I'm going to allow you to leave the United States. As a criminal investigator, that's wrong.
Yes.
If you do the crime, you need to do the time. So if you are selling drugs, you do 2 to 3 years incarcerated, and then you are removed from the United States. But to have a judge and a prosecutor sit there and say, it's okay, we just want him out of the country, we don't want to work on this case anymore, it gives them a free pass.
I'll agree, Bruce.
And the problem with that is if he re-enters the United States later, and he had a federal conviction, he'd be on the fast track to be removed. But if he doesn't have that federal conviction from the first time, he's on the slow track, which could be 10, 11, 12 months. And so it makes no sense. We have lost the integrity within our criminal justice system when it comes to illegal immigrants.
Do you think that goes to the AG? Does that go all the way up to the Attorney General?
Well, I saw it in the last administration. And I think it's an easy way for the courts to just move people. It's an opportunity for a judge to clear his docket and say, hey, this guy's going to take a quick pass and we're going to remove him from the United States, versus keeping him in custody for the 2-3 years, whatever he deserves as far as a sentence go. We used to see it again and again. I'd walk away from some of these courtrooms shaking my head and saying, this guy just got a pass. He's going home. He's been in jail maybe 2 to 3 months. He should be in jail for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
Chris. Yeah.
And I think, Bruce, another thing, and again, it hurts my heart, because I've interviewed some angel moms on this program. I've interviewed some angel sisters. I've interviewed some angel dads. And it hurts my heart when I hear the stories of the people that we've lost due to this revolving door in our justice system. And again, there's no justice for American citizens many times. And then these people, as you said, they walk out of here like a game of Monopoly. They pass go. They don't go to jail. They don't collect. I mean, they get to collect their $200. We don't get to do that, Bruce. We have to clean up the pieces. And you've got people that will never see their loved ones again. And, you know, I guess it was last week I heard somebody up in the higher levels of the Department of Homeland Security, and it may have been Kristen Nielsen herself before Congress. She said, look, she said, the border is at a breaking point, and if we don't get it under control soon, we're going to lose it totally. And Bruce, that's a scary, I know people think that's hyperbole and they think that's just melodrama. I don't. I believe it's that at that point right now, because every agent I talk to down there, every sheriff I talk to down there, they don't know what to do right now, because they're getting very little. I know I'm not laying this on President Trump. I'm talking about the Department of Justice. With that revolving door, it's almost like throwing a seashell into the ocean and have 500 come back. I mean, it's almost like that's what you're trying to do. And it's got to be frustrating on our law enforcement folks.
Yeah. It's very frustrating to be able to claim asylum, be cut free in the United States, and never see the person again. I mean, 90% of the people that claim asylum and are cut free, you'll never see again. And now they're into the country and they can do what they want to do. And so for the grace of God, go we sometimes. but that definitely needs to be tightened up. And and people say, well, you can continually throw money at the Triangle, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Central America, and we have. And I think this was the first year that Trump decided not to throw as much money, but we've thrown millions annually, millions. Where is that money going? Because if indeed there's that type of violence and gang activity there, then politicians down there just must be lining their pockets.
I'll agree with
that. So what do? Continue that money flow to them? Something has to change.
I'll just interject this real quick, Bruce. It has to start with the American government putting pressure on these other governments and saying, look, you get your crap together, we're going to shut the border. Look, that to me has always been what I felt like needed to be done anyway. Even if it's for 6 months or 3 months or 2 months, just shut the whole thing down completely. I know it would hurt commerce a little bit with Mexico and probably some things coming in, but I know that there's logistical things we could do to fix that. But as far as people coming across that border, I'm telling you, I don't really see any other way to fix something like it's going on right now until you just shut it down completely for a time. Don't have to be forever.
Yeah.
Get a handle on it, get your wall built, and say, hey, we're open for business again after a certain time. And look, President Trump is a builder. He could put this wall up in 30 days. The way I just knowing what I know about him and his acumen for building and business and stuff like that, the grass would not be growing under his feet to get it done. Now, that's just my take on it. I may be a little naive about that and looking at it through simplistic glasses, but I really, truly believe that would help a little bit to solve some of this, to give it a pause until we get a handle on it, because it just seems right now it's like sand flowing through our hands, and these people are coming in, and like you said, once they get in here, we can't find them no more, and that's going to keep happening over and over if we don't put a stop to it somewhere.
Yeah, and we can absolutely shut down the passengers and the passenger cars and the people that walk over the border, and you don't really have to shut down commerce. You don't have to shut down the trade, because there's generally a separate port which just would allow trucks to come in, et cetera. And so if you did shut down the foot traffic, you could use resources to actually do better X-raying of cargo that's coming in. We estimate at least sea bearing. There's a container that comes into the United States, a maritime container, one every second. So think about that. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, law enforcement, they can't look at every container. They have to do it smartly. But if we could use some of those resources at some of these commercial ports of entry that we didn't have to use in some of these foot entries, we definitely could do a better job at stopping some of that flow of contraband coming into the United States, for sure.
Do you agree with the wall right now, how he's proceeding with that, or you feel like that's necessary or needed?
Well, I think the wall to a lot of different people means different things. It means putting up a physical barrier, but to some it means it's a euphemism for putting extra resources and extra assets there.
Right.
I mentioned earlier in the conversation that overstays, doesn't matter how big a wall you have, people that come in legally and decide to leave, you're never going to stop that with a wall. But you do need to increase your interior enforcement on these illegal aliens. We need to come up with a way to track these people down who overstay their visas, whether they come in as students, whether they come in as religious visas, whether they come in as workers, and they need to be removed from the United States. It needs to be a priority. That goes right to national security.
Absolutely, Bruce. Bruce, do you also believe, too, that these sanctuary states, these mayors, these governors, these sheriffs, and it's not just California, because I've heard of sanctuary cities in Texas, some of these sheriffs refusing to uphold the law. To me, I think there needs to be criminal charges against them. I do. I think if they was to come down and make an example out of somebody, I guarantee you it put a stop to the others, because they get the message that this is unacceptable behavior, that you're not going to be a law enforcement officer in the United States of America and not uphold the laws that you're ordained to uphold. And that includes governors, that includes mayors, and that includes attorney generals of certain states that tell their ICE agents that it's illegal for we're going to go after you. If you detain somebody that's here illegally, we're not going to go after the illegal. We're going to go after you, like Mr. Bizzarra did out in California here a few months ago.
Yeah. I really think a majority of the law enforcement folks would want the ICE people to pick up and honor the detainers. I really think it starts at the political level. I don't know of any community where people have voted for sanctuary cities. I think it's all done within council. I think it's all done by the mayor. It's done by the governor. Those are the people we need to go after. Look at the mayor from Oakland,
Yes.
California, who tipped off the illegal community that ICE was going to come out and do raids. Now, how many people were not arrested that went and committed violent acts against our citizens based on that nonsense from this mayor? That she is someone that you would need to prosecute and make a statement. That's where the Department of and I really thought the U.S. Department of Justice would have stepped in on this thing and proven a point for this administration. Why they didn't do it is beyond me.
And Bruce, that's the frustrating thing. Look, I'm going to give Barr the benefit of the doubt for now, but look, Sessions did not step in. It was during Sessions' time, and he should have done that. Look, he should have had his backside over there in California that day with a warrant for her arrest and saying, you are no longer the mayor of Oakland. Come with us. We're going to put you in federal custody, and we're going to hold you in contempt of court, obstruction, whatever you want to call it, whatever charges they can find. Your what do you call it? The duty, a dereliction of duty or something. I know there's a legal term for it. I'm with you 1,000% on that. I just hope Barr is going to take a different approach to this and put the hammer down. And again, I just think it takes one. If they'll do it to one, it'll send a ripple effect to other leaders that this is unacceptable behavior. We're not going to tolerate it. And again, I don't really care about the political cost right now. And I'll say this to you. I've said it to other guests on my show. I think I said it to Eric. Bruce, the human cost to me will far exceed any amount of money that we ever put into any physical barrier down the South. I don't care if the thing costs $1 trillion. You can't put a price tag on a life. Sure. You can't put a price tag on a soul. You can't put a price tag on a mother, a daddy, a son, a daughter, a granddaughter, a brother, a sister, a niece, a nephew that's lost due to illegal aliens being in this country. There's no price tag on that.
No.
And I think that that's the cost people need to be understanding, and they don't take that into consideration because they're always taking the political cost into consideration. How about the human cost? Because that to me is the most important cost.
And the paradoxical thing about this the whole sanctuary city issue is the fact that you're allowing, and mostly in immigrant communities, you are allowing criminal aliens to go free where they may prey upon their own people, their own ethnic people. So they're actually making these communities more dangerous by not allowing ICE to or the locals to honor these ICE detainers. It makes no sense. And then I've heard the argument, well, if we do this, people aren't going to pick up the phone and report crimes. I got a point for everyone. Illegal aliens don't pick up the phone and call police. They live in the shadows.
That's right.
It doesn't matter what you're going to do. They do not want to confront a police officer. They see a crime. They're not walking through the department's door. They have the fear of being removed. So that's a total argument that should not even be said, that they won't report crimes because they don't report crimes.
Very true, Bruce. Very true. One last question on this. I'm going to move on to something else that's still related, but it's a little different. But I do want to ask you a question, how you felt back, I guess it's a few months ago, when Kamala Harris, who is from California, who is a Democratic presidential candidate for 2020, and I think all of I think every candidate that's running on the Democratic side falls into this category, where she was so hateful and rude to the ICE agent that she was questioning. And I know as a former ICE agent yourself, that has to irritate and disgust you and offend you to watch the Democrats' attitude toward the agents themselves, who are putting their lives on the line every single day for this country, every single hour, every single minute, just to keep the country safe. They're doing their jobs, and yet the Democrats are hell-bent on saying we're going to get rid of that agency. It's got to be offensive.
It's demoralizing. It's demoralizing to hear someone like Elizabeth Warren say we got to abolish ICE. It's ridiculous, and I don't even believe they believe their own rhetoric.
They don't.
But to mistreat a federal worker, we've seen it with some of the religious groups, like the Episcopal Church, that won't accept certain ICE people into their parish. What is that saying? These people are just federal workers that want to go do their job, put people in jail, keep people safe on their streets in the public safety eye, and yet people will demean them. It's almost like the lowest of low. And again, it's very, very demoralizing for you as a federal employee or special agent for ICE. Absolutely.
I bet it is, buddy. And our prayers go with all the ICE agents out there tonight. They do, and all of our law enforcement. Bruce, I want to ask you a question. Another part of your past, you was with the New England field office, and an intriguing thing about your journey to where you're at today, your office was involved in the arrest and the capture of the Boston Marathon bombers that happened in 2013. And it's a riveting story. And I hate to ask this kind of question. Patriots Day was out about 2 years ago. It was a movie with Mark Wahlberg, and I don't know if you saw that movie. It was sort of a documentary. You can sort of speak to how accurate that was. But look, it was a tough day. I run a newspaper here in East Tennessee, and I remember that day like it was yesterday when the news came in. My editor, publisher at the time, called me up. It was in the afternoon. She said, "Hey, we got a breaking story." My heart went to the ground watching all this, but you were right there on ground zero. And if you don't mind, I wish you'd tell us a little bit what happened that day and how you guys were involved in that. And we'll talk about terrorism, because terrorism, the other disconnect with the border issue, and it really ties in what we've already been talking about. As you said, it's not just Mexicans and Hispanics and Latinos that are flowing across the border, Bruce. We don't know who's coming across that damn border.
Right.
And, look, if it only took 11 men or 13 men, how many ever number, on 9/11 to bring down 2 towers, destroy the Pentagon, and probably they were probably targeting the White House, perhaps with that final plane that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to have a bunch. They can get these little networks together real quick. And that's the other threat about the border. It's terrorism. And we experienced that homegrown terrorism in Boston in 2013. And I want you to talk to us a little bit about that and how that sort of ties into everything else we've been talking about today with the border.
Sure. So, my agency, as well as the FBI, as well as state police, Boston PD, did an excellent job of responding. The first responders that were right there in the finish line, of course, they did a great job saving people's lives. And then the investigation started. And one of the things that my agency did, or my agents did, was to pull the video feed at the finish line from the different restaurants, from the different coffee shops, et cetera. And so some of my agents, for the entire 4 days before that, that following Friday, where everything kind of hit the fan, analyzed that video feed, analyzed those platforms to determine the 2 Tsarnaev brothers who had dropped the bomb. So excuse me a second.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. You want me to continue? I'm sorry.
We can continue. We're good. We have all sorts of distractions. This is Mac Files. Bruce, you're fine. You're at home. You can go right ahead. Keep calling. Okay. You're fine. No worries. No worries at all.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine, bud. You're fine. You're fine.
That's another example of law enforcement coming together and working together. Once again, the 9/11 Commission, I brought that up earlier, that we need to do a better job, federals with the state and locals. But that's a real good example during the course of that week, where everyone came together, utilized their mission, their resources, what they do best. One of the things that we do, one of the things I formally did, we were able to take people who are out of status and try to get them to cooperate on some of the bad guys, that type of thing. That went on. There were a lot of behind the scene interviews going on to get to the point where we were on that Thursday, where we released the pictures of the 2 Tsarnaev brothers. And then, of course, everyone knows what happened that night. Unfortunately, we had a couple of police officers killed, et cetera. But a point that I want to make that not a lot of people know was, leading up to this, my agency, the FBI, Customs and Border Protection, we did a lot of outreach with the Muslim Sikh community. And we did that for a reason. We did that in case someone within their community, someone within their mosque was radicalized. We would want them, the imams, we would want the elders to come forward and say, hey, this person, one of the Tsarnaev brothers, is espousing things against the United States. He's openly, becoming radicalized. You might want to do something. unfortunately, that failed to happen leading up to the Boston bombing.
Interesting.
That August before the April bomb went off, he was doing just that in the Somerville, Massachusetts mosque, espousing, death to the United States, infidels, et cetera, et cetera. Do you believe no one came forward and provided that information to law enforcement? And so we worked very, very hard at meeting with them quarterly, monthly, whatever, to cultivate these relationships in case something like that happened, and it failed to happen. It's pretty disheartening, to be quite frank. Does it mean you can stop? No. You still have to get out there and do the same thing. But it was extremely disheartening for that to happen when needlessly, had they said this Sarnav brother was doing that, we could have absolutely put a tail on him, followed him around, taken him down, do whatever. But we could have prevented that Boston bombing. I do honestly believe that.
I do too. After hearing from other situations, I do. I believe that. And I got a question for you along these lines. Why was the media so slow, do you think? And this is probably a softball toss. I think we both know this, but I do want to get your insight on it. When incidents like this happen, and you have these bombings in Boston that just scream that it's terrorism, that it just screams that it's a terrorist act. But I don't know if you remember this or not. The media. And I almost believe that some of the local officials were just so scared to come out and just tell the public it was terrorism. I mean, does that happen a lot in these events? Is there a reason for that, or is that just coordinated? Or can you speak to that a little bit, why we're slow to want to call it terrorism these days?
It's totally absurd when you hear about this stuff, people espousing hatred, people that want to kill in their name of religion, to not believe that it's terrorism. Exactly. So for the liberal media to give them every opportunity, or at least fail to come out and call it what it is, it's beyond ridiculous. And it doesn't do justice as far as notifying the public, as far as what is potentially could harm you out there, such as someone who would drop 2 bombs at the end of the finish line of a Boston marathon. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Super Bowl early on, but hopefully people are tailgating out and before they get into the game. How easy is it with crowds like that to do exactly. A lot of destruction, a lot of damage? But the people need to be aware of this.
Amen.
And to not call it that, and to fail to call it that, because what? You're going to hurt someone's feelings? I mean, it's totally ridiculous. The United States citizens' welfare should be first with any media organization. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's funny you brought up the sporting events. Look, I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and even our little stadium, even our little town, Neyland, we see close to 100,000 people in that stadium every Saturday during the fall, and it's packed every week. And, I've always wondered to myself, the easiest venue, if somebody wanted to do some major carnage, I mean major carnage, you look at any sporting venue in America, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, even hockey. I mean, hockey games, 10, 20,000 people. Look, that's 10 times more than were killed on 9/11, Bruce. And we got to be vigilant. And that's the key word, is vigilance. But if you've got a media and you've got a group of people on the left that are screaming at us that we're Islamophobic, if we call it terrorism and we call these things that, and whether the Boston bombers were Islamic based or Muslim or whatever, something, I don't really give a crap. They still had an ideology that hated America. And that's the key. It don't matter what your damn religion is. But if you hate America and you want to destroy America, Chris is just an old humble South Georgia boy. That's a terrorist to me. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's almost as if the liberal left is looking to talk about homegrown terrorists or white supremacist terrorism. They want to go after that first,
right point,
versus hurting anyone's feelings. I mean, we're so way off the charts as being politically correct, but then it becomes less of being politically correct, but being safety correct. We need to know this stuff. It's about your safety. It's about my safety. It's very frustrating, extremely frustrating.
I'm glad you brought the white supremacy issue up, because I want to ask your opinion about the event that took place toward the weekend in Christchurch, New Zealand. where this guy had this manifesto that was on the internet. And I personally believe, Bruce, it was all a setup, honestly, because literally, even in the manifesto, he said, look, I'm doing this to get liberals in the United States to basically call on people for gun control. I mean, he acted like a white supremacist, quote unquote, going out and killing Muslims, when in fact, his heart of hearts, he didn't care about any of that. He was doing it to get the response he's gotten from the left, on cue, grab the guns, blame Trump for it, blame America for it. And all it was a monster that had nothing but a political agenda and an axe to grind. And I don't even think he had an axe to grind. I really believe it was set up. Now, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist here, but I'm just curious from a security guy's point of view, from an ICE agent as yourself, what did you see in that at Christ Church? Did you have any insight on that you could share with us?
Well, immediately for the media come out and blame Donald Trump by his rhetoric, talking about the word invaders, inciting people, it's ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous to put the gun into the man's hand. It's ridiculous to say. And again, I think it comes back to our initial conversation that you have some of these moderates or middle of the road Democrats that have swung so far to the left because they hate the man. And so this is just another example of that. It's absurd that would happen. It's absurd that happened. But the bottom line, getting back to what you're talking about, who knows what goes through some of these people's mind? I mean, there's got to be a mental illness there somewhere.
Sure.
You just don't open up on a fellow human being. You just don't do that. And so to put the blame on a politician's rhetoric is just absurd. It's maddening.
We've become great at that here in this country, sadly, on the left, that we never blame the shooter. We never blame the person. It's always somebody else's fault that he went out and did it. And, I talked to a group of college kids here about 3 weeks ago, first time I'd ever been able to talk to a group of kids. And that issue came up. And I told the kids then, I said, look, guys, I said, you can go house to house in America, pull out every gun that's in this country, stick it in a pile, burn all the guns up. And I said, the criminals and the terrorists and people that want to harm you will still find something to hurt you with.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Bruce, they drive trucks into crowds in Europe. They use knives. They can set off explosives, and they can do a number of things. It's not about gun control. It's about terrorist control. We need to get tough on terrorism. Final question. We got about 10 minutes. I want to ask you right now, when you sit, where do you see America's greatest threat right now? In terms of security threats across our nation, and just based upon what you deal with every day and still see, and as a former agent of our country. And I want to just say thank you first. Two things. Thank you for coming on the show, but thank you for your service to our country. It's been great meeting you. It's just such a pleasure. And I know our Patriot audience feels the same way. You've been a great source of information tonight, but we thank all of you folks, Eric, yourself, all of you that have served our country and protected us. But sitting from where you sit, if you could talk to our people tonight and say, look, these are the top 3 things that you need to be concerned about as an American citizen security-wise, what would they be?
Well, obviously, we've talked a little bit about the immigration issue and the fact that there are people in here harming us as U.S. citizens that should not be here. I mean, that's always going to be a threat. I mean, you're never going to stop. I mean, you're never going to stop that. I mean, it's impossible. Secondly, we need to start thinking about national security in a global way, in an international way. And so, you got to think about some of these cells, some of these European countries that have been porous as far as their borders, like Germany, for example, Belgium, when they've had their terrorist attacks. I mean, hopefully we in the United States don't fall down that same trap where we're going to allow that to happen here, to have that mass migration. It makes no sense. There has to be nationalism. There has to be control of the borders. We cannot have that. And those are prime examples. Those European terrorist incidents are prime examples of what happens when you have porous borders and when you have these folks coming in that haven't been properly vetted. And then finally, I think if you look on the biggest scale, we got to start thinking about people who get the nuclear weapons into their hands. You're talking about the DPRK. You're talking about North Korea. Hopefully these sanctions continue to work and we can continue to squeeze them. But you're talking about Iran.
Yes.
That deal that Obama had to allow that was absolutely ridiculous. But that's something that we really, really have to think about is the proliferation of nuclear weapons into the wrong hands. Because eventually, if Junil can launch a rocket into Guam, that's us. That's our territory. Those are Americans that are in the Guam.
Game over then. Yeah. And the world basically we're plunged into World War III on the Asian Peninsula if that takes place. And I mean that's the far-reaching effects. Bruce, we got about 5 minutes. I'm going to let you wrap this up. Thank you so much, brother. Final thoughts, and let me just say this to you: we tell everybody this. You're not a guest on the Mac Files, but about a minute, and then you become a friend. We're going to have you back on very, very soon. And I do want you next time you come back, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how the Obama administration, because I don't think this gets talked about enough. And again, I'm not trying to look at the past, but I think to find out what you saw, how they weakened this immigration system. And I'm not saying it's all their fault, but a lot of it took place during those 8 years of Obama. And I'd like to get your input about how we got to the place we got to with this immigration system, because I know it didn't happen overnight, but something happened where our borders we've lost control of this. And I'd like to get your insight on that next program when we get you back and some other things. But final word tonight, 5 minutes, wrap us up. So good to have you tonight as a guest.
No, thank you very much, Chris. Much appreciated, and look forward to our next conversation for sure.
Tell everybody about your group, your consulting firm, and what you do, and where they can find you on the internet and so forth.
Yeah, so my website is www.foucartandassociates.com, and Foucart is spelled Foucart and Associates.com. And I have several people that work for me. We help small to mid-level companies protect their brands. And we're talking about counterfeit products, counterfeit pharmaceuticals, for example, things that can hurt the American public, things that can hurt the citizen, things that can hurt the consumer. People think, when they think of counterfeits, they think of the sporting goods and the Gucci, the watches, etc. But they don't think about counterfeit airbags that won't deploy in your car, or counterfeit brake pads, or counterfeit pharmaceuticals like Xanax that's laced with something. So there are health and safety issues related to our consumers. So that's one of the things that I focus on, as well as, again, teach a little bit about anti-money laundering, teach a little bit about trade-based money laundering, and anything else that comes down the pipe. I utilize my resources that I have on my team, as well as 31 years of federal law enforcement experience to get the job done.
That's great, Bruce. And I think that you just brought up a good point. Maybe that'd be another good topic we can talk about. Is I'd like to get in that laundering subject and get some insight about that. I think a lot of people would be intrigued to hear about that. And by the way, do you like in your consulting, do you have like a manual how the Atlanta Falcons can win a Super Bowl before Chris is 90?
I think probably the best way is to put pressure on Tom Brady and maybe take him out.
Hope he retires next year. I'm praying, Tom, please leave. Okay. Good game. Good interview, buddy. It's been fun. It's been fun meeting you today. I'm so glad we got to do this, and we appreciate your insight, Bruce. We really do, and we're going to have you back on soon. Folks, we've been talking with Bruce Foucart. He's part of Foucart and Associates, and he mentioned his website to you. We've got it up on the screen, and also his Twitter handle and how to reach him. But listen, stay in touch with Bruce. We're going to have him back on the Mac Files. Hope you've enjoyed this interview tonight. Bruce, thank you again. We'll be back with a final thought after this. Stay with us here on the Mac Files until just a few minutes. But Bruce, until next time, we appreciate you, friend. God bless you. And thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Mac Files.
Thank you, Chris. Look forward to it. Okay.
Stay with us, folks.
been listening to the Mac Files. Follow Chris on Twitter at ChrisMC44.